Hello and welcome. I'm Daniel Trev for this Sunday evening's edition of Arirang News. President Park Geun-hye left for Iran today for a short but historic trip to expand political and economic ties with Tehran. It's the first state visit to that country by a Korean president in more than half a century. Song Ji-sun, who is traveling with the president, starts us off.
President Park Geun-hye embarked on a trip to Iran to become the first South Korean president to visit Iran since the two countries established diplomatic relations 54 years ago. On Monday, President Park will start her day with summit talks with President Hassan Rouhani. Revving up economic cooperation will be the key. Diversifying trade items is among the goals. In addition to recovering their bilateral trade volume, so over 40 international sanctions were imposed on Tehran. The two sides are likely to ink multiple deals that could help Korean companies take a greater part in Iran's infrastructure projects aimed at rebuilding its economy. President Park and Rouhani will also agree on ways to expand cooperation in areas like health, culture, and ICT, and discuss a range of regional and global issues, including North Korea's nuclear threats. Following summit talks with Rouhani, President Park is also expected to meet with Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, which could also help set the bigger picture for relations between Seoul and Tehran. On Tuesday, President Park will attend business events prepared to better help Korean entrepreneurs enter the Iranian market of 80 million people, which Seoul has tagged the last blue ocean of the Middle East.
사상 최대의 경제 사절단이 동행하고 1대1 비즈니스 상담회도 대규모로 열릴 예정으로 있습니다. 이번 기회에 기업들이 좋은 사업 기회를 찾을 수 있도록 철저하게 이것도 준비해 주기를 바랍니다.
As is customary now, President Park will also encourage Korean nationals living in Iran and attend a culture exchange event showcasing Korea and Iran's traditional assets before leaving Tehran on Tuesday. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
It's fair to say that Seoul-Tehran relations have been on a roller coaster ride over the decades. Things started out well and deteriorated sharply when Iran was in the international wilderness for its nuclear activities. But now the future looks bright. Whether it lasts is up for debate, though, especially considering the country's long friendship with North Korea. Kwon So-hwa takes a closer look at the past, present, and the possible future of South Korea's ties with Iran.
Given that it's not only the first time President Park visits Iran, but the first ever trip by a South Korean leader since Seoul-Tehran relations were established 54 years ago, there are high expectations a new chapter in bilateral ties will open. Generally speaking, the two countries had a good relationship in their early years, even creating a Seoul Street in Tehran and a Tehran Street or Taeran Valley in Seoul, some 6,500 kilometers apart. After the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the friendship deteriorated and would not be restored until decades later, as Seoul supported the UN Security Council's efforts to terminate Tehran's nuclear program. But since the landmark nuclear deal last year lifted international sanctions off Iran, Seoul was one of the first to revive relations, quickly sending its foreign minister to Tehran, the first visit of its kind in 14 years. But there are concerns about trying too hard.
We have our traditional, old friends and allies in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, and Israel as well. And they are worrying about the, emergence of Iran in the international world.
Also, there is the fact that North Korea and Iran have been very close, not to mention their cooperation in developing nuclear material.
I just hope that let us give a chance to those young, supporters of reformist factions so that they can have, bigger voice against those, clerics, the hardliner clerics who wanted to keep their connections with the North Korea.
It remains to be seen whether South Korea and Iran can enjoy a good partnership in the years to come. But Seoul's ambassador to Iran suggests the two build a multifaceted relationship, boosting not only economic ties but also political, cultural, and many more fields of cooperation. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
Speaking of North Korea, the submarine-launched ballistic missiles the regime claims was a success is likely had to have ended in failure. Seoul-based News said Sunday, citing multiple government sources, that the projectile launched on April 23rd flew about 30 kilometers before exploding and may have broken into 2 to 3 pieces without the booster separating from the rest of the rocket. That's well short of the 300-kilometer range for this kind of missile, according to military experts in South Korea. Another source said it's possible Pyongyang's military officials and missile developers made false reports to leader Kim Jong-un, saying the launch was successful. The launch is one of 4 ballistic missiles the North has tried to release in the last 2 months. All have ended in failure. The foreign ministers of China and Japan held a rare bilateral meeting on Saturday. Although there's a number of issues the two countries are deeply at odds over, one area they did find common ground on was North Korea. Kwon Jang-ho tells us more about the two sides' efforts to improve their strained ties.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi hosted a bilateral meeting with his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida in Beijing on Saturday. It's the first time in 4.5 years that a Japanese foreign minister has visited Beijing for such talks. The two nations have had a difficult political history stretching back over 100 years, but the most recent issues have been around conflicting claims over a group of uninhabited islands in the East China Sea. Although tensions have been thawing, Beijing did not exactly welcome Kishida with open arms.
As the Chinese saying goes, we should make a judgment based on not only what people say, but also what they do. Today, I'm ready to listen to your opinion about how to improve China-Japan relations. And I'm also going to see whether the Japanese side will sincerely match its words with deeds.
China are also said to be suspicious over a ruling in Japan last year, which allowed its military to fight overseas for the first time since the war. One issue they did find common ground on was North Korea. Both sides agreed that the regime's recent provocations were of serious concern. North Korea has defied recent sanctions imposed by the UN by carrying out a series of missile launches, with rumors of a possible 5th nuclear test starting to emerge. Kishida stressed that the two countries need to work together in order to adopt measures that stop Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions. The Japanese foreign minister continued his charm offensive, meeting with the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang and Chinese State Councillor Yang Jiechi, with further meetings between the two countries being planned for the near future. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus back down south of the border, some downbeat news on the trade front. Imports and exports shrank for a 16th straight month in April. Oh Soo-young has the concerning numbers for the export-reliant South Korean economy.
16 months of negative growth. That's the trend for both imports and exports in the trade figures for April, released by the Trade Ministry on Sunday. It's also the longest ever export decline for Korea. Outbound shipments amounted to $41 billion, down 11.2% from the same month last year. After hitting a 6-year low in January at around minus 19%, exports seem to pick up a bit, but the latest double-digit drop has put a damper on the brief recovery. Korea's Trade Ministry attributes the downward trend to there having been fewer working days in April, 1.5 days less than last year, accounting for a drop in total exports of roughly 6.2 percentage points. Lower unit prices for petroleum products, chemicals, semiconductors and flat-screen displays also pulled down export figures by 4.5 percentage points. While the April figures amount to a trade surplus of around $8.8 billion, the simultaneous drop of both inbound and outbound shipments represents a red flag for the Korean economy. In fact, the Trade Ministry says the export prospects for May aren't so rosy either, considering the number of public holidays this month, as well as a protracted global economic slowdown and a slump in oil prices. To rev up the economy, the government has vowed to implement both short and long-term measures to boost the export volume. It will also hold special sales events and engage in diplomatic activities. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The Samsung Galaxy S7 has been named the best smartphone by a U.S. product rating and review magazine. Consumer Reports gave the Galaxy S7 80 points out of 100 in its April issue. The report gave the gadget high marks for its outstanding features, including its battery life, camera, display, and water resistance. The Galaxy S7 Edge came in second place with 79 points, and the S5, released in 2014, was third. Another Korean tech giant, LG Electronics, came in fourth with its new flagship G5. Apple's iPhone 6 and 6S tied for eighth place with 77 points. Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton took aim at the foreign policy platform of her Republican counterpart Donald Trump, describing as reckless, loose, and dangerous. In an interview with CNN on Saturday, she said, quote, "I don't think loose talks about loose nukes turning our back on our strongest allies, pretending you have some sort of secret plan, is a very smart way to go forward in leading the world, which is what we must do." Former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and Virginia Senator Tim Kaine have both echoed Clinton's remarks, deriding Trump's foreign policy slogan, "America First." Kaine called it, quote, "almost a disqualifier for someone to not know that was the name of the movement that tried to keep the U.S. out of World War II. Now for a quick look at the weather before we go. It feels like we're fast-forwarding past spring and straight into summer here in Korea, though it still gets quite chilly when the sun goes down. Turning now to the forecast. On Monday, rain is expected nationwide, so don't leave home without an umbrella if you're in Korea. Seoul will start out the day at 15, and Daegu and Cheongju will be at 14. Later on, the mercury will rise to 26 in Seoul, and Daegu and Cheongju will rise all the way up to 25. That's Korea for you. Let's check out the weather conditions in other parts of our world. That does it for us at this hour. We'll have more updates for you at 10 p.m. Korea time, so do join us then. Thanks for watching.